Would it assist for you to tell us the true facts about the life streams of Yeshua and Mary of Magdalene, Saint Germain, Saint Francis, and how I can best honor them as the entourage, letting them be in charge? How were their life streams in the ordinary day-to-day details? Did they have angst with the family monads? There seems to be a lot of mystical and fluffy stuff, yet I do not want to ever dishonor the truth of all that is.
Absolutely. Yeshua's journey was really misperceived in a lot of ways. Did the dear one come through to assist humanity to wake up? Beyond just waking up, because, that's just a beginning point. But beginning to question so much. We're going to go into all the Roman roles. We're going to go through all this whole planet. Whether it be Nazareth, Jerusalem, it doesn't really matter, and any other places that the dear brother has played. And as you went through that, where his family was involved, was there issues? Absolutely. Was there huge misunderstandings? Absolutely. Now, from there, what took place was that your brother had eons of questions that didn't quite make sense due to the answers. But you see, there was that beautiful journey. Even with he and the Magdalene, their personal journeys and their journeys together. As everything transpired and unfolded, they no longer gave in to what was. You see, beyond following your heart for a moment, they began to question the whole system. And when the whole question that they were playing with was, what's really going on here? Kind of like the same questions you've had. Their family monads, from Yeshua to Magdalene, all the way to Yeshua, all the way to Francis. Yes, there was a lot of this shuffling about. Because even when Francis was called about his journey, no more different than Yeshua, they stepped out of the day-to-day scenarios. I'm supposed to be a carpenter. I'm supposed to be a cloth maker, being Francis. I'm supposed to be a worker, just like everyone else in Yeshua's journey. Just by all the stuff that was taught and then shown around. But the point I love is their journey was really no different than your own. Because even with Yeshua, it was very not exactly appreciated to go to the priests, to go to all the religions. It was not exactly celebrated in all the questions he was asking. And the questions that even the family monads had about how to do this, how to do that, how to play with that, how to play with this. Even speaking of the mystery schools, where they had their get-togethers, about 23 miles, 48 feet away from town, to where they wouldn't be overtaken by the rule and the government, by what was considered to be unappreciated. And from there, they began to sit with one another. One was playing with mystical realms, which is what you've been playing with. At one point, that's what it was called, because it was going beyond all the density of what was being forced upon each and every dear brother. To begin to come to terms with, and also being presented with answers that were of clarity, answers of understanding. Understanding what they knew, but had no idea to put it into words, and they knew it, but just didn't know what they knew. until they would get together, different ceremonial events, different galas, different playtimes, still nothing serious, except to explore together until Yeshua decided that it no longer resonated. And the reason it no longer resonated was, unfortunately, once again, it was about separation. There's us, then there's them. And from there, not exactly applauded, decided to take upon his own journey. And the journey that he went upon was a journey of what we're playing with. The marriage of the higher and the lower. That's why earlier when we were playing with, letting the universe reopen throughout every particle of your being. Something that's so often missed, even in science. What's behind the nucleuses? What's behind all the amoebas? What's even behind the human genome? What keeps it working? What keeps it moving? What keeps it aging, reproducing, regenerating, not regenerating? He took it further. Many will call him a quantum physicist. At one point, that was very true. Consciousness alters matter. And boy, is that a walk in the park. But then going further beyond that, to even where the family was concerned. When he began about his own journey, it was not celebrated whatsoever to go out of carpentry. It was definitely going against all the quote, i.e. rules of the city, of those metaphoric unfoldments. So to answer part of this question, yes, there was issues with the family monad. There was love, there was honor, there was support, but there was also a lot of misunderstandings. To led him all the way to questioning all the quote, i.e. authorities. And we're different than government right now. He wasn't there to create a ruckus. He wasn't there to create any conflict. But he was there to honestly, purely ask questions that no one had answers to, which really made things a lot more conflicted on their side, which also had the dear brothers stand out more and more, which I know so many can resonate with that. Because the questions are questions that were more in depth than just the trivial stuff. And then where the Magdalene came in, as he was about his own journey, was once again judged about to be stolen. They have a lot of rocks thrown in them, and I just want to be clear, it had nothing to do with narcotics. Being stolen at that time has had a lot of rocks thrown at you. But nevertheless, she had that same calling. She knew full well something was off. And then, when they came together, because even the words at that point is, if there's any dear brother here without humanity calls it sin, I call it issues, and confusion, then throw the first rock. And sure enough, it was done right there. So that broke up all the raw about, we see daily, you're my mother, you're my father, I'm going to take my whole unhappiness out on you. And I have to kind of chuckle when you're watching that all around. And I chuckle out of great love and compassion, but at the same time, it's reflected outwardly rather than letting themselves be free. And that's why you see what's going on the planet right now. Everything that is not of integrated states, that is of complete confusion, which is of the blame game, on and on and on. It's all being dissolved and brought to the forefront over time. Even continent challenging continents, on and on and on. Dear brothers against his dear brothers, on and on. All of it's being exposed right here and now. That's why you're watching it so quickly. Even on the media, which you're watching all around you. See, that's when the Magdalene, once again, that you don't hear much about her family monad, even in biblical encode, went off on a venture of clarity at her heart level. And the clarity in the heart level began to marry. They call it the Christ consciousness, which is no more different than the purification of crystallis states that you're reclaiming right now. So when I refer to beguns, creator levels, manifest levels, take command. Why don't we all play with it for a minute? Higher levels, creator levels, manifest levels, take command. Can you feel how much lightness? Not fluffy lightness, but real lightness. Beginning to reintegrate through your body beginning to arise. And you, most importantly, are rising through the physicality. About your true journey. And then came the time as she stepped out of that family monad due to all the forcefulness, the perceptual judgments. Not by denial, not by attempting to share, but you have to be this, you have to be that, you have to be that, you have to be this. You also have to marry this to your brother, not that to your brother, on and on and on. The shackles began to fall off. And the shackles that were there were the shackles of no different than now. They have been attempted to be put upon her. In yourself as well. All the misunderstandings from dear brothers around, all the challenges they feel all around. Just being in your presence. Well, yeah, of course they're feeling it because you're exposing everything just by your presence being there. But nevertheless, they went upon their own journey themselves. Not to deny any of the monads whatsoever, or the mystery schools, secret societies, nor even what was that time presented as the overpowering authoritative figures. That's what led to all the breakdown, as far as the crucifixion and otherwise. Because that was only one small part. Savargita's family was a family of herbologists anyways. Playing with the mystical tools that aren't really mystical, it's called herbology and energy work. But went beyond that to giving him frankincense and myrrh and tincture on the brow. It gave his body the appearance of being in a coma. That was why they could never find the body in the tomb. They wrapped it up with herbs, frankincense and myrrh, as he came out of a comatose state, where he and the Magdalene went about their own journey. Which is not discounting Joseph or Mary by any means. He became the guide for them as well. The guide, not better than or less than, but it was the, I guess you'll say, for sake of understanding, pushing their own clarity from what was known at one time to break wide open to all that is, rather than certain little finites of ritualistic states. They even began to expand and break up what you call the mystery schools in many ways. Not about a level of conflict, but a level of dependency in the secrecy. And everything began to come to a head again. When I say that, it's began to become exposed of what really is going on. Rather than having our beautiful tools and gifts hidden away and then coming back to town to fit in again, that was the part that was being broken up to where everyone began to scatter, literally globally, and began to step into their own, within their own divinity, but also beginning to facilitate and play with the rest of the humanity. That's the part that you're not quite shared. That's why even when all that took place, when they went about their own journey, it was a journey about the whole planetary matrix, rather than playing in one segregated group any longer. Did they go through pain, suffering, all this fun stuff? The biggest pain that was ever there was the lack of understanding from brother humanity and total compassion for humanity. which I really wouldn't deem as pain, except here's Creator right in front of me who has no idea who they are. And I've shared and I've shared and I've taught and I've taught, I've assisted, I've assisted. But now it's time for me to go on with my own journey. And letting them go where they go with it. With what they know. Because now they know what they know. But it can only be up to them to walk through that doorway. That was the whole metaphor about going through the eye of a needle. It's going to the core of their own brilliance from a total high integrity purity state. Not wanting, not to achieve, not to overcome, not to play all this into all the odd stuff. I know more, you know less, all that colorful stuff. It was the brilliance of what was being presented to assist humanity as a whole to go further. More metaphorically than it was literally written. It was written more of a metaphor for humanity beginning to explore who they are. But then they came together from the heart level, as always, to go about the whole planet assisting, not preaching and all this fun stuff, assisting, but also getting to play with all the elementals. And that was really the unfoldment of Yeshua. Now going into Francis's whole monad was more about tapestries. They had a huge business and a long linear line of business. Speaking of Francis of Assisi, when it came to making cloths, beautiful fabricated fabrics, and the purchasing, the selling, the weaving, and otherwise, which was a brilliant journey in itself. Until Francis still had that calling, and we're different than Yeshua. Then here comes Clare. And the passion they had so deeply, the love that they shared so deeply, which was a whole different unfoldment of where humanity was. That through those dimensional planes, based in what you call the linear time continuum. And when he and Clare had come together, the passion was omnipotent. And at this time, there was such a commitment that Francis had, such a huge calling that Francis had, and a lot of despair as well. Despair began when he shared with the family monad it was time for him to move forward. He had another calling. He went all off with himself, because remember, it was also the quote, i.e. arranged marriages. Clare would have been the perfect suitor on that one. Everyone in the whole village could see the love and the beamingness of light from both of them. But Francis made the decision that, along his own journey, that he wasn't willing to split himself off from his own creator essence. And that's what you'll find a lot when we play with it, about all vows of celibacy. It was the understanding that to maintain celibacy was about purification. So through his own journey there, he decided to run forward in a celibate state. And Clare, who was in such despair, once again, who went beyond the rules that were being placed upon them, and somewhat completely enamored by beloved Francis, but at the same time, where Francis and Clare were concerned, he decided to move into the monastery. And that's where the Franciscans were created. And because she couldn't have them in the physical at that time, she decided to become a Franciscan. Love just growing and growing and growing, not to follow him per se, but to follow her heart and the love that they both share. I say share even as of now. But then from the catechism state. What was being shared and offered and written was to be a Franciscan. They went into the hills of the snow, with the snow. They went on many walkabouts. They wore sackcloth robes and tiny little sandals because it was such a struggle to remember who you were and not get sucked right back into the masses. Because the other truth is both of them came from very wealthy families, if they followed the rules. But they walked away from everything. That's just an example, although they've been used time and time after that as examples, but not quite with clarity on that. So they walked away from the abundance and all the simple, as I guess you would say, pleasures of the world. On this one, it was about a commitment to his greater essence. And began to write inspiration after inspiration after inspiration. And began to share it with the rest of the Franciscans, even through the catechisms. Until once again, the compassion that he felt, because he would write, he would share, he would share, he would share, he would take off with even with the Franciscans, no more different than Yeshua and the disciples, that were really seeking and searching. Because they knew there was something different here, but they knew, gosh, it's so the truth. Until Francis took his last breath with Clare at his side and left the planet. But left such a beautiful dialogue of data and information before it was tampered with. A great passion, great joy, great love. Until it became very dogmatic and changed. But their hearts were married from day one. Whether they were together physically or not, it wasn't important. Their love together, and even his love to play with all the kingdoms were there. And I wish I could share you a happier story that they were finally together and had offspring like Mary and Yeshua had with their offspring. But it wouldn't be true. But it was that calling, that thirst, that passion and compassion of love that they were walking about their own journey still side by side. Just not of what you would call being married or as a couple. The love was always growing. That's even why the animal kingdom stood out so much for them. Why all the animals on the planet would come up with them. One, for assistance. Two, because they were honored completely just by their presences together. Until Clare went about her own journey after she stepped out of the Franciscans and began to teach, to assist, share the true story, the true love, what love really is, without all confinement, the rules involved. Once again, another brilliant example of a marriage of the heart. Then there was Germain, who was another beautiful alchemist, played with so many of the elementals, turning silver into gold, all kinds of fun things. That's why many deemed him to be the saint of finances. But everyone's a saint of finances. You are a saint of finances. It doesn't really matter. But that wasn't what his journey was about. His journey was nowhere different really of Yeshua's in some familiar ways. Turning silver to gold, no more different than turning water into wine. It was playing with all the elementals that were accessible. Once again, to get to play with brother humanity and all of their innate abilities in which they had. And to go further about his monad. Yes, he did walk away from the monad level of consciousness. And yes, he was married. But still, even through that, the love, the passion, the romance, and the creativity, the clarity violet flame, which is once again purifying density through the violet flame of Creator and Creator consciousness in creation, of purifying and dissolving the egoic structure, the mental levels, and the body structure. No more different than anyone else, except he was also playing with the purification of the crystalline matrix of the physicality, turning density into purity, as well as playing with the elementals, until once again, the I Am religion was created. And all that with Mount Shasta, on and on, all the underworkings within the mountain, are those true? Yeah, they are. But still, that was what his journey was about. I have to kind of chuckle because he's looking through his live streams. He also played at Shakespeare as well. He had so many different stories upon stories upon stories, not about emotional issues of stories, but about true love, true passion, like Hamlet and otherwise. The Dear One presented so much to the planet that, as you noticed, each and every one of their journeys have made such a huge impact that are still here now. It's just so much is misinterpreted. We've also noticed they both, all three of them, stepped into a whole different state. They even stepped away from religious indoctrination because they never wanted to be worshipped. They wanted you to worship you. And what was meant by that was honoring one's own beingness, the brilliance, the divinity, the Christ consciousness, which is once again the crystalline structures that are within everyone on the planet, Creator waking up incarnate, which is all they were attempting to share, even from what you'd call the metaphoric dark ages, on and on and on. Even if you look at the sequences of them, including Krishna, including the Buddha, and Paramahansa Yogananda, and Mahatma Gandhi, all the way to Satya Sai Baba, they all came so brilliantly, and eons of others as well that we play with, that presented it at its times. And I say times based in sequences of events and circumstances that they came right through the womb and, hey man, bring it on, let's go, up and running. Until all these religions were made that was going totally, completely against exactly what they were asking for. It wasn't about them that was shared time after time after time. It was about you waking up to you. And beyond just waking up, beginning to step into all of you, where there is no veils, there is no segregation, there is no better than or less than, there is no hierarchy. But there's all these brilliant masters in their own mastery walking the planet, because every step you take, you're connecting grid systems of light anyways. Not fluffy light, literal light. Of purification, connectedness. But you're also playing with the planetary structure itself, as I was playing with earlier, how the planet shifting is assisting you and you're assisting the planet in one. The brilliant Eden that's always been here. Until beloved Francis decided once again, no more different than Clare and Francis, Yeshua and Mary, and his own bride, going into, I could just say hiding, but it's not really hiding, it's going off about their own journeys to explore so many other planes, but still in the physical. And if you'll notice, especially Germain that presents, even in his own live stream, 158 years later, his body hadn't changed at all. But then stepping out here, stepping out there, you're playing more with teletransportation, not about a party trick by any means, but about playing with dimensional dynamics to get to explore and automatically assisting so many others anyways, but never to be put on a pedestal until he eventually decided to step off the planet and now even be able to play with humanity further, as goes So the whole point being is, dear ones are going to walk their own walk, or they're going to become so uncomfortable they're going to walk their own walk anyway. That's what I mean by the fast track and the scenic route. But literally, it is a done deal. Everyone will be on the fast track. It's just a matter of how long dear ones are going to let themselves struggle and struggle and struggle, and how much more confining the conflict becomes until they literally throw themselves forward. Or step off the planet and pick up a new body as an indigo, a rainbow, a crystal offspring or not. Because you're coming back anyway. It's just how long dear brothers are willing to hold on to where they've been. That's why you see so many dear brothers struggling right now. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when.